Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RFP Success Show. I am your host, Lisa Rehurik, founder and CEO of the RFP Success Company. And today we're talking about managing RFPs in uncertain times with guest Zach Hemraj. Okay, so in the beginning, I forgot to ask him how to pronounce his name. So Zach, how do you pronounce your name?
You got it right. Zach, and then Hemraj is my last name. Perfect.
Oh, good. Perfect. Well, welcome. Excited to have you here.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody, Zach is the CEO and co-founder of Loopio. And Loopio's response software helps companies supercharge their response process to RFPs, DDQs, and security questionnaires. With Loopio, teams can respond faster, improve response quality, and win more business. Now, Loopio recently hosted a virtual community-led proposal town hall discussion. And really what they did is they asked proposal managers how they were navigating work in wake of COVID-19. That was basically the question that was asked. Hundreds of proposal managers joined the event to discuss how the community is handling things during the pandemic. Also, more than 300 RFP responders participated in an industry pulse check survey about how they're coping with the sweeping changes around the globe. And that's what Zach is here to talk to us about. This is all sponsored by Loopio. I love that we're talking to Loopio because I just like saying their name. That's the coolest company name ever. So Zach.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just kind of kick it off. You know, you recently hosted this virtual industry town hall. Tell us more about that gathering and kind of high level what the purpose of this was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, thank you for the great intro. I appreciate that. It really came from a place of curiosity. We're in a very fortunate position as a company, and we're very grateful to have more than 800 companies that use Loopio today in a variety of different industries, and our community goes well beyond that. As far as all the companies that we and partners that we interact with on a regular basis. And nobody has all the answers, right? I think it's truly unprecedented times. We're all saying that, you know, up and down across every industry, across every medium, and we're all trying to figure it out. And so we thought, you know, the best way we could help support the community and also learn as a business is just get people together that are like-minded, that are facing similar challenges, and ask the right questions. And that's really where the event and the survey came from. So the industry pulse check survey was put out there to our community. More than 300 people responded to it, mostly RFP professionals, proposal management professionals, and the gathering of more than 300 folks on the panel discussion was also a majority proposal management professionals with 3 great panelists as well from 2 RFP consulting firms, and then a leader in the kind of proposal team at DocuSign, which is one of our customers. So a really good collection of insights, and that was it. We just said, let's put the data out there, let's put the questions out there, let's learn as much as possible, and let's kind of get a better grasp of what changes these teams and people are seeing in their industries and in their market. How is it affecting their workload? And you know, what are the challenges and new motivations in this new climate? And let's just carry the conversation forward.
I love it. You know, it's interesting because I think everybody, there's a little bit to a lot of fear going on out in the world right now, right? And I think it's really easy for people to be wondering what everybody else is doing, but not necessarily know how to get that information or what to do next. So I think it's fantastic that you guys did that. It was a great webinar too, or that town hall. I listened in on it and I really enjoyed it. Tell us a little bit about the changes that proposal teams are seeing in the wake of all of this.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that it's so easy to have our opinions skewed in this new world, new climate by, you know, just a single source that we read. And so having well-rounded perspective and a lot of data is very helpful, and that's where we wanted to help out. You know, where we liked to start and where we started the conversation and where we started the survey was really around the work, right? What is the changes in the workload and the types of work that professionals are seeing? And you know, the data was actually very interesting. We noticed about a third of the audience from a survey perspective were seeing a decrease in volume of RFP activity. and about a third we're seeing an uptick and an increase in activity, and a third we're about kind of somewhere in the middle. And it's interesting data, but it makes sense. I think if we look at our customer base, if we look at RFP professionals and proposal management professionals, they span many different verticals and many different industries, and many different shapes and sizes of teams. And as we've seen in this kind of new climate, different industries are being impacted in different ways. And so it was really interesting to kind of get that snapshot of data and see that teams are seeing different impact on kind of the volume of activity and kind of sharing perspective across the board. So I think that's interesting. It also makes it a lot more difficult because there's no one size fits all solution for any proposal management team or RFP team. But really interesting data to get the spread and the different industries and teams were being impacted differently, and it's almost split evenly.
And so when you break it down and you said like a third, we're seeing more of a decrease. Were there any commonalities within that third? Was it specific industries, specific, whether they bid on federal, state, things like that? What were some of the trends you saw down there in the third that had decreased?
Yeah, definitely. There are trends, and I think some of it won't be surprising that some industries are seeing direct impacts as a result of the pandemic. And I think it's really important when we think about RFP professionals that it's about their customers, right? Their buyers, because for us it's our customers' customers that are really going to impact what's happening in this new climate. So industries that are serving events or the restaurant industry, are directly, and hospitality are directly impacted.
Yeah.
Environments maybe such as other industries that are helping with online communication or online education are possibly getting more demand in a time like this. And so it is widespread. I think it depends on kind of the team's customers and how their customers are buying, and those are some of the trends that we've kind of seen. And yeah, I think we can slice the data in many different ways. I don't have all the cuts in front of me, but that's kind of some initial kind of impact that we saw.
That's pretty cool stuff. I mean, it is really interesting to see. And I was we did a podcast interview a few weeks ago too, and with somebody from GovPurchase, and he said they were actually in the federal space seeing an uptick, an increase of about 40%. Where we in my company, we're seeing a decrease in state released RFPs. So it's interesting. And I agree with you. It's got, there's no one size fits all there. What do you think for the proposal teams that are seeing decrease, they're seeing less RFPs. What do you think they should be doing right now?
Yeah, this was actually a great discussion on the panel as well.
It really was.
With our panelists, and it's interesting because I think one thing that's clear in building this company and working with so many RFP professionals is that the value that proposal management professionals and RFP professionals can add in their organization is quite vast, because they have so much knowledge of the inner workings of the company. And I think at a time like this, that's a strength and an asset, and the ability to add value in so many different ways. So when we talked about this on the panel, there was really a wide array of suggestions, everything from thinking about, can you help generate new business opportunities from a business development perspective, and if you are in a team that bids on some sort of public RFPs or works with bidding sites, can you start leveraging that in some way? There was a lot of talk about reflection and optimization, and I think in periods of lower activity, all the projects that you've been putting off for a long time, where it's upkeep of content, maybe generating new content that's specific to COVID-19, or doing any sort of reflection with your wider teams, because there is a lot of repetitive processes that happens in RFP teams, and so can we leverage this as an opportunity to turn up our efficiency and our optimization as a team and kind of implement those process changes that we've been putting off for so long. And then I think the one of the last suggestions, which I really liked, is you're always asking for help from subject matter experts in a company. Could you possibly use this as a time to give back and help subject matter experts? And are there ways that you can do that, right? And I think every company is going to be different, but I think the lens of giving back within your organization to people that you depend on regularly, I think is a very powerful concept, and probably spans across many different types professionals and industries and something that anybody can learn from.
I love that. And I really love that discussion too, because, I think that most proposal managers, or maybe the majority of, or would say that they are underappreciated in their organizations, that
Mm.
they kind of get blamed when things go wrong and they don't get the spotlight when things go right. This is a great
Mhm.
opportunity. I 100% agree with you. Great opportunity to add some different value and allow people to see you in a different light. So I love that discussion so much. And I also agree with, we just actually, at recording of this, we're April 14th, in the
Right.
recording of this, my company just put out a challenge to help people kind of, just a free challenge, weekly challenge, I think it's 6 weeks, to help people really, polish their writing and polish their content.
Yeah.
And for your clients with Lupio, cleaning up that library and making sure that they've got all that content really cleaned up, I think it's a great time to do that kind of stuff. But I love the idea of not just doing kind of some of those behind the scenes stuff, but get seen in front of your business development team and your SMEs. That's so beautiful. So let's talk about
Yeah.
challenges now, kind of shifting a little bit. What are some of the biggest challenges that teams are experiencing right now? What have they
Yeah.
identified?
Absolutely. And I think that we do know that, in the proposal management community, a lot of folks are working from home to begin with. But
Yep.
what we learned in the data that we gathered was that 60% of folks were working fully remote for the first time. And with that comes a lot of challenge. And I think a lot of us are facing this in our own companies, regardless of what industry we're in. And so that was probably the biggest topic, is the challenges that are directly related to this new normal of being fully remote as a team for the first time. And a majority of people were feeling that way. So the challenges are really around, keeping engagement of teams and collaboration, and can we really keep that same standard of how we work together and collaborate? How do we stay engaged? And then kind of related to that, just the overall morale of their teams, and whether it's their direct teams or kind of their extended teams, how do we keep that morale going? And that's kind of what we talked about on the panel was, what are different ways we can keep people engaged and keep that morale high, especially since the majority of our panelists and the majority of our audience members, the majority of the people that responded to the survey, we're now experiencing this shift for the first time.
So do you have any tips for people to stay more engaged? So
Yeah.
let's say we want to get more engaged with our SMEs and reach out and help them. What's a good way to do that to really connect with them?
Yeah, maybe I'll start off kind of at the more general level.
Okay.
I think, and we can kind of dive into that
Sure.
together and talk a little bit about what was happening in the panel. But I think it starts with communication, right? And I think that everything is about communication, and the reality is now we have to evolve and change the way that we communicate. And the sooner we can accept that we need to evolve and change, then the better we're going to be as a team and as a business. And so establishing what that new cadence and heartbeat is of communication, both through the frequency, but also the cadence in the medium of how we're communicating. So some teams are doing more daily syncs or check-ins. Kickoff calls maybe are being extended. Maybe there's digest emails that are being sent on a weekly basis that help keep everyone aligned and speaking the same language. But I think the reality of remote teams is that they put more effort in communication. And that's how they stay more connected. So I think the reality is that whatever initiatives are in place, it's going to be to help move the dial on communication. So, it could be sync calls, it could be digest emails, it could be, more ad hoc kind of check-ins and conversations, or kind of a new strategic monthly or weekly meeting. But I think it's all rooted in communication challenges and communication opportunities.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation with a couple of other colleagues, and we were saying at least in the short term, it feels like people are being a little bit more communicative, or they're being
Yeah.
more present in the communication than before, even though we don't have as much face to face. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I think it's, of it is just more of the shock factor of adjusting and trying to keep up, and every team stabilizes. You'll figure out that new normal and what that new cadence is. But I agree. I think I've heard way more stories of teams kind of stepping up to the challenge,
Yes.
and kind of adjusting and communicating more to keep their teams and their businesses going than I've heard of the opposite. So I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a app called Marco Polo. Are you familiar with Marco Polo?
I am. I haven't used it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was using it. We've been using it before because we have a contractor, a partner that uses it. But all of a sudden now everybody's wanting to use it. It's like a video walkie-talkie. And so instead of texting all the time, we're video walkie-talking, and it, you just, again, kind of gives you that face-to-face, feels like
Hmm.
you're having a conversation. I think it helps while we're all separate and isolated right now. So it's kind of fun to see all of those tools and things like that coming out of the woodwork.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts on how you think that proposal managers can improve the team morale during this time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think when we pose this question to our panel, and even when we talk about this internally at Lupio, I think there are some clear themes that come to the surface. Number one is, there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, and there's a lot of things that are out of our control. But how can we continue to shed light on the impact we're making, right, as a business and as individuals? And so, all of the success stories that happen in our business with, whether it's the content we're writing or the proposals that we're putting out there, or the deals we're helping to win, or how we're changing or impacting a customer's life, those stories were important before. They're way more important now, right? So sharing those stories more frequently, being louder about them, reminding people, repeating them. I think that is one way. Is like we have to also all have to work together to remind each other of the impact that we're making every single day, because that's positive and that's something that we can control. And so that's a really important thing. I think so. That's one area. Another thing that kind of came up on our panel, and I think it's a very important topic, is how do we continue to create a psychologically safe team and environment? And I think part of that is making it okay to ask for help. Right? If you need help, and kind of this is a world now where professional and personal lives are bleeding together. If you need help, then ask for it and make it okay to ask for it. And going back to giving back and supporting internally within your own organization, and then on your end, also being flexible that the unique needs of every individual on your team are going to be different. Whether it's parenting commitments or other kinds of commitments that may not have surfaced in the pandemic world, and so pre-pandemic world. And so I think that's something, just acknowledging that, being okay with that, and talking about it more is a way that we can boost morale and continue to stay stay high energy and stay supportive and collaborative as well.
Yeah, and it's so important with the isolation. I think we all handle it in a different way. For some of us, it's easier. For some of us, it's harder. And I think being conscientious of the fact that everybody's going to be dealing with it differently, not in the way that you as the leader are going to be dealing with it. And so checking in and having those conversations. And I love the thought about, making it okay to ask for help. Hugely important in these times. What other, from that, the panel and from the information that you gathered, were there any other themes that you saw, any other key points that you want to make for our audience here?
Yeah, I think that, generally, we also asked about kind of how people were feeling about their own job security as RFP professionals and in different industries. And generally, I felt that the data showed that it was majority felt fairly secure about their jobs. And I think that's important. The other thing that I kind of want to note on is, it's still early innings for a lot of this data, and it's why we're going to be doing these industry pulse checks on a regular basis, and we're going to be hosting another town hall as well, because we want to see how this sentiment is going to evolve, as the weeks and months continue to progress. I think we're all feeling that, we're living a month in a day, because things are changing so quickly in the world around us. And so, at Lupio, we're going to continue to do our best to stay on top of it. Support note that I want to make is that, it's good to get some of its initial data, and it's still very early inning. So, and we're going to see how it all continues to stabilize. And I think, if I could look at any of the other notes, I think we did touch on a majority of the concepts. And we talked about morale as well. And so, yeah, I do think that we touched on a majority of the things. I think one of the other things that came up was content that's specific to COVID-19, and what will buyers want in terms of your business and want to know as far as how you're reacting to this new world. And so I think if you're looking for other types of proactive activities, thinking about trying to get ahead of the demands of your potential clients, in terms of what they'll be asking for, what they'll be scrutinizing, what will the buyers of 3 months from now want, right? And actually challenging your own internal teams to kind of be a little bit more proactive in producing that stuff, because
Great
as
idea.
the economy kind of continues to change and stabilize and return, we want to be ready for those challenges. And I think proposal managers and RFP professionals are better equipped to do that than almost anybody. So, let's take full advantage.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and it goes back to the point about adding more value and really getting in there and showing your internal constituents that you have a lot more to. I shouldn't say a lot more, but you really showcasing that talent and that skill and that amount of information. Because again, I think, as you said, proposal managers have so much collective information that nobody else in the organization has. So having kind of those strategic conversations about what's going to happen, because, I can't imagine things are just going to go back. We're not going to wake up one day and everything's going to be back to exactly the way it was. Do you have any thoughts on how you think this might change the proposal industry in general going forward? I know it's kind of a big question, but
It's a big question. It's a big question. Yeah, it's a big question. I think it's the future, like it's a lot of unknowns. And if I had to kind of think based on what I'm learning and what we're seeing in discussions like our panel, I think that a lot more focus, at least in the short term, on business continuity and security practices, and how businesses will continue to stay resilient. I think if that wasn't a focus for your business before, I think you'll see that kind of come more to the surface. I think that if you're a technology company and you weren't really helping with teams that were remote, I think that you're going to just see a lot more remote teams in general now. So how do you fit into that conversation of collaboration and teamwork and productivity? That I think there's going to be a heightened focus on that, as far as your services and how you can support teams that are set up in this way. I think in general there's just going to be more of an appetite for remote work and remote teams after the whole world is kind of experiencing this shift, right? And so I think those are maybe some of the themes, and I think it's a good exercise, I think, for any team to think about, what does 6 months look like, 12 months from now look like for our market, our buyers, and what are some assumptions we can make about how this pandemic is going to change the mindset of our buyers, and what does that mean to our business? Because I think the devil is probably really in the details there. That every industry is going to be maybe a little bit different. There's going to be some common themes, but every company is going to have their own unique shifts in their market. And I think trying to make some assumptions now and get ahead of it is going to be valuable for any business.
I 100% agree with you. And back to something that you said earlier that I've repeated, you've repeated about, getting involved in the strategic conversations, getting involved in business development stuff sets you up. Because I hear all the time, and I'm sure you do too, from proposal managers, we're so tired of not being part of that conversation. Well, now is the time to get in there and be part of the conversation and set yourself up so that
Yeah,
so that they get used to having you in, and that won't go away. It's a beautiful opportunity for that, wouldn't you say?
absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Perfect. All right. So you said that you guys are going to kind of keep doing these town halls. I don't, did you say you're also going to be revising the survey, kind of continuing to take surveys of folks? And can you tell us a little bit about more about that, how often you're doing that and how people can get connected to make sure that they're involved with that?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. To start, we're going to be hosting another industry town hall early May. I think we'll do another cut of our survey in about 3 to 4 weeks. Timeline maybe adjusted. Everything's kind of we're learning on the fly here, but the goal will be to have the data ready for our next town hall, which will be in early May. So we're looking at that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So to find out kind of the latest and the details and all the specifics, just look us up on LinkedIn. So if you look for Lupio on LinkedIn, you'll find the company. We're posting all of our updates there on a regular basis, and that's the best way to get in touch with our team. And if you have any questions for us, you can post them there as well. And all of our contact details are there. But yeah, Lupio on LinkedIn will be the best place to go to help find out what's happening. And then we will do a follow-up industry town hall in early May, and that will be backed by kind of the next evolution of the data. And I think that will be really valuable to be able to see the trending information, right? And we kind of talked about this earlier that things are changing so fast. And so getting even some of these exact same questions asked again, I think will be very valuable. And you can go to our website to download a whole bunch of resources. There's a summary of the data on our blog, and as well as other recording of the town hall that you can watch as well. So that's all available, and we're going to keep sharing that stuff.
Perfect. And are you going to be doing this like as things get back to normal? Do you think you're going to continue this on to kind of just see how the trends continue even after we get back to whatever normal, I've got air quotes going on here right now, whatever normal ends up being,
Yeah,
right? Do you think you're going to continue
yeah.
this on kind of through that too, to see how things settle out?
Well, we have no plans of stopping anytime soon. I
Okay.
think that's so maybe that's the best way that I could put it. We'll continue this up, and I think if it's adding value to the community around us, and we're learning as a business, then I'll just we'll keep doing it. But no plans to stop anytime soon.
That's so great. All right, everybody. So LinkedIn, Lupio, we will have the link to that in the show notes. Follow them on LinkedIn. So there's always a little follow button. Follow them, and then you'll be able to get all that info. We'll have all the info on the links from their website on the show notes as well. Zach, is there anything else that you want to share with us before we conclude?
I would say just if there's anything that Lupio can do to help shed light on with the access to the community that we have that you think will be valuable, when you take our survey, you can let us know in there. You can reach out to us directly. We'll do our best to incorporate all that feedback. And I think the only other thing is then let's continue to learn and grow together. This is the message that I shared with my team this morning at our company-wide meeting, and maybe I'll share it back out here. As professionals of all types, let's continue to do our best to support each other and focus on the things that we can control. And I think part of that is the impact we can make on people's lives, both inside our organizations and outside on our customers. The other half is how we can continue to learn and grow as individuals, right? So let's just continue to focus on that, and we'll all kind of learn and grow together. And that's maybe the last note that I would add.
Well, what a beautiful message and a beautiful way to end. So Zach, thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate it. Everybody, you have been listening to the RFP Success Show. If you haven't subscribed, please take a couple minutes to subscribe, and we will see you back here on the next one.